Now, good morning. Hi, everyone. I'm Lucy Townsley, and I specialise in women's health and trauma that goes with women's health. So if you are having problems with your cycle, trying for a baby, because I really don't like the word fertility, pregnancy, who have had their babies, because sometimes we need help when we've had our babies as well, because we're meant, it's meant to be perfect, and it's not easy when you're not getting much sleep and you've a little tiny person relying on you. Also, we go on to then moving on to perimenopause and menopause, all different stages of a woman's life. So today I am joined by Jolanta. She is an holistic pharmacist and really helps people with nutrition and lifestyle medications. Also, her speciality really is about diagnosing and testing, and she's going to tell us all about the tests that you can do that really look out for your hormones, changes in your hormones and stuff. So I'm so glad you're here, Jolanta. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Thank you for inviting me to this conversation.
I'm so excited to hear about the testing, how it works for women, what you do and what, who comes to you to get tested.
Yes, so I've been a pharmacist for just over 30 years now. So I've been in healthcare advising people for a long time. And I've often noted, how people, they try one thing, they try another, whether it's medication, supplements, diet, and they seem to go down one avenue, it's not working, they try another one, it's not working, they try another one. And diagnostic testing was brought to my attention about 10 years ago. And then I suddenly saw the beauty of diagnostic testing, because it can really pinpoint and highlight exactly what's going on in the body. And you have a roadmap. You have a roadmap of where you need to go, what needs to be restored and balanced, for optimal health, whether that's balancing hormones. So for example, one of the tests that I organise and interpret for both men and women of all ages is a Dutch test, and that's dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. It's a very simple test. You just urinate on a strip of paper 4 times over the course of 24 hours, but it gives us a mass of information. It checks for sex hormones. So it's really useful if a woman is having any menstrual problems, or if a woman is planning to get pregnant or has been trying for a while without any success. And it's also really useful when a woman transitions through perimenopause and menopause. And I actually get men asking me to do the test for them, because they claim, I've got low testosterone because I have all the symptoms. And actually, funnily enough, when the test is done and we get the results, it's actually showing they've got too much estrogen in the body, and that is sort of really masking any of the positive beneficial effects of testosterone. So this test is just my most favorite test, and it doesn't only just check for the sex hormones. So it checks how the liver in a woman, how it's processing the estrogen, how it's detoxing the estrogen, because there's 3 different pathways that estrogen can be detoxed via. And this is really crucial for any woman that may be considering HRT, because if she's still got a lot of estrogen in her body and she then takes HRT, she is going to feel pretty horrible. And this is what happened with me when I went through the menopause, and I didn't realize I was estrogen dominant, and putting HRT on top of that was just like a ticking time bomb. But the test, just going back to the test, it checks adrenal health. So things like cortisol, another hormone called DHEA, which is called like the youth hormone. It checks for antioxidant markers like melatonin, glutathione, oxidative stress levels. It checks vitamin B6, vitamin B12, and neurotransmitters. So it is the most marvelous test. But I also do another test that's really, really popular, is food intolerance testing. Because I was reading the other day that 45% of the population most probably have a food intolerance without knowing about it. And so their symptoms, whether it be gut problems like bloating, IBS, diarrhea, constipation, acid reflux, through to tiredness, headaches, migraines, joint aches and pains, skin issues like acne or eczema, an underlying cause could be a food intolerance. So, I've helped a lot of people, so people of all ages, come to me and say, I've got this issue, and how, what would you suggest to really get a resolution?
Why do you think that, when you go in as a woman, so you this is something that you did when you had your menopause, going through, I presume, when you're estrogen dominant, a lot of hot flushes, not sleeping. I'm putting words in your mouth. So how was your menopause? What symptoms did you have that defined you as estrogen dominant?
Oh my goodness. Well, I started, I'd say, transitioning into perimenopause 10 years ago. And it really hit me literally overnight. And so one day I was me, Jolanta. The next day, I literally felt like I was a different person. I was standing there in boots, talking to a patient. The hot flush started, and they kept coming every hour. It wasn't just one. And so I was sweating, my makeup was running, and you feel so uncomfortable. And it was that night, the hot sweats, the night sweat started, and literally I was waking up 3-4 times a night, just soaked. I had to change my nightie, the bedding, and of course you don't get a good night's sleep, so the next day you feel even worse. And so this started happening every single day. But what I actually noticed was my personality was changing. Like, I had a really happy life, but I felt so sad. I'd cry at the drop of a hat. It's like my resilience to stress, it was nuked. I'd be walking around the supermarket, planning my meals, and if they didn't have one ingredient, I mean, it was crazy. It would just throw me off, and I couldn't think, so what am I going to cook, tonight or tomorrow if I can't find that? It's like my mind just unraveled, and I thought, I'm going crazy. And not only that, but a lot of fear came up for me. So, and the fear was mainly around driving. Like, at the time, I was commuting to work for about, it was 2 motorways. So it's about, a good hour's drive to and from work. And I would be gripping the steering wheel. I was petrified of driving. Now, I'd always loved driving. And so, all these things, it was like, I don't know what's going on. But even so, like, because you asked me about how did I know I was estrogen dominant? I mean, I didn't know at the time. It wasn't until I got myself tested. but like I started swelling. So like really puffy eyes, you know, puffy hands, especially my ankles. I was getting really bloated, and the headaches. I think it was the headaches that were probably the most debilitating. Like I would get a migraine 4 days a week. And
wow, that's a lot.
I went
That's a
to
lot.
the doctor. I went to the doctor and I said, you know, please can you check my hormones? I think I'm approaching the menopause. I mean, my periods at the time were a little bit, I wouldn't say I was bleeding heavily, but they were a little bit more erratic. And the doctor said, well, we can check your FSH levels, and I'll give you more migraine medication, which did help like neutralize the pain of the headache. And you're only meant to take about 3 a month. I was taking 3 or 4 a week. And I thought, what am I doing to my body?
And as a pharmacist, you probably knew, you know more about medication than even the doctors know, because that's what you've learned in university for so long.
Exactly. And I thought, you know, I went to see various private practitioners, and you know, they're all saying, yes, it's estrogen dominance why you've got these migraines. And I tried, you know, I thought I knew all my supplements and what to do with my diet. And, you know, my own journey just showed how little I actually knew, because I tried supplement after supplement. Some would work for a couple of months, and then, you know, the symptoms would be back. And I tried changing things in my diet, and nothing was really sticking and making a difference. And it wasn't until I found a private practitioner that actually does what I do now. And she said, we need to get you tested, Jolanta. We need to find out exactly what's going on in your body. And I had a food intolerance test. I knew nothing about food intolerances at that stage. And it highlighted that I was intolerant to egg whites. Now, I was eating 2 eggs with avocado every single morning, you know, nutritious breakfast with some rocket. And do you know what? Within, I'd say 3 to 4 weeks of completely eliminating egg whites, I was migraine free. I didn't have another headache. And I can eat egg whites now, not too many, but, you know, my body just doesn't like too many egg whites. And, you know, the practitioner also did a Dutch test for me. And that was the game changer for me, because when I saw in black and white, or you see it in color actually when you get your results, and I saw exactly what was happening in my body and piecing, it was like putting the jigsaw puzzle of me together. And, you know, it was okay. This needs to be resolved. This pathway needs to be resolved. And so with a few dietary tweaks and a couple of high caliber supplements, within, I'd say literally it was within days that I noticed the hot flushing stopped and the night sweat stopped. That was the first thing that just eased off.
Wow.
And then slowly, all the other things started falling into place, because I was suffering a lot with, I feel it's safe to be completely honest in this space. I was suffering a lot with urinary incontinence. And then as the weeks went by, I thought, gosh, I can actually go somewhere now without panicking. Where's the toilet? You know, and just this sense of liberation and ease in my life. And slowly I just felt more like myself. And funnily enough, a year later, I wanted to check how I'm doing. And I think that's when I'd already entered menopause. So I actually transitioned through a very hectic, chaotic perimenopause because everything became more balanced. You know, I actually transitioned through the menopause, you know, the day when, you know, I completely stopped bleeding, you know, with ease. And now when, you know, when I then did another Dutch test, my sex hormones have flatlined. You know, I'm not producing much estrogen. I'm not producing much progesterone or testosterone. But because I'm balancing all the other pathways in my body, I feel like I'm thriving and I feel better, more energetic than I did 10 years ago. And I think I'm really passionate about this. I mean, I have a lot of ladies coming to me who are going through the perimenopause or, you know, are postmenopausal. And I always say, you know, it's not necessarily about the estrogen and progesterone levels. And I'm not against HRT, you know, that is every woman's choice. But you can absolutely thrive, even when because it's a natural progression.
And did you try HRT yourself? Did you try any of those?
So when I was perimenopausal, when I was 45, yes, I tried HRT because that is what the doctor offered me. You know, she did the FSH levels and she said, yes, you're approaching menopause, because it was about, I don't know, 25, and she offered me HRT, and oh my goodness, it was like I had, you know how some women describe thunderclap headaches? I mean, it was constant. No painkillers would relieve it. Nothing. And that's because I was estrogen dominant, and it was just like putting more estrogen onto an estrogen dominant body. And at the time, you see, I was although I had a good diet, I'd always suffered with constipation. And so, you know, it's not until I did my study in nutrition, because after all this journey, you know, what I wanted to do is I wanted to share this, you know, with others. So I actually undertook, once I'd sort of all those symptoms at ease, I actually undertook 4 years of extra study to gain a diploma in nutrition. And, you know, constipation is key. You need to resolve any constipation for any woman, whether she's, you know, just started her periods. So, you know, any female, let's say, when she starts her periods at puberty right through to, you know, old age, getting good function is crucial. We need to resolve any constipation, because otherwise the liver is trying to detox all that used up estrogen. It sends it to the gut, and if the gut microbiome isn't balanced and you've got unbalanced bacteria in there, they're going to unpick all that estrogen that's ready to be detoxed, you know, via poo, and it's all that toxic estrogen is going to be reabsorbed in the body. And I think that for me was something key I had to look at rebalancing.
It's actually really scary, and I'm just thinking of a lady in my clinic who wouldn't go like maybe once a week, and it was when she came to me, and that wasn't why she came for something else. But I remember asking her that question about her bowel movement, and she goes, maybe once a week, maybe it's always been once a week. I was like, oh my goodness, that's not normal. You know, I agree, the stool and the, you know, there's more so in old people's homes, you know, they have the chart with the different stool types. Yes. You know, that chart should be used for everybody, I think, young and old. Yeah, definitely. It's a huge thing, and it's an embarrassing thing. People don't like to talk about their poo. They don't like to talk about it at all.
I mean, it's an everyday thing for me. You know, I work with some mums with their children, and they will send me photos of their child's poo, you know, in the toilet bowl, because especially with a child's health or gut health, you can tell a lot by the consistency and the colour of the poo. So I'm used to it.
So I have to ask this question. What should a healthy poo look like? Sorry to ask that one.
So ideally, it should be a nice mid-brown colour. Ideally, when it comes out, it should be almost like an S shape, because, you know, the intestines are sort of curved. And so if it's come out nicely, it should maybe have a bit of a curve in it. And it should be smooth. So none of those like little round pellets making up the solid stool. Yeah. Ideally, it shouldn't plop heavily into the toilet bowl.
Why shouldn't it plop heavily into the toilet bowl?
So this is all about the probably the waste matter and the fat that's been digested. It should plop in, you know, quite softly, and you know, it so we don't want it definitely not watery or blobby, because obviously, you know, that means it's just passed through the gut too quickly, meaning that, you know, all those nutrients from your food and most probably any supplements that someone's buying haven't been absorbed. They've not, you know, the gut hasn't had a chance to absorb all of that. And then of course, you know, you don't want the other end of the scale where it's really, really hard to pass, or it comes out more like rabbit pellets. Yeah, that can happen too. And the other thing we don't want to see, we don't want bits of food in the poo, you know, undigested food. I think this is kind of grim, sorry. The only one that seems to come through is sweet corn. It's one of the ones we can't digest, isn't it? Sweet corn is one of the ones you can see sweet corn. Yeah, that's the one I remember. Yeah, that one. Yeah, so there are a few exceptions, but when people say to me, oh, I've seen like bits of mushroom, or I know this is probably not a very savory conversation, but you know, they tell me various things that they have actually found in the poo, and that is because there's probably not enough acid in the stomach, or enough pancreatic enzymes to digest that food. No, but that's true. So it's essentially like your digestive starts with your mouth, doesn't it? Chewing the food, swallowing it down to the stomach, and then small intestines, large intestines, and then excreting what we don't need. So one of the systems obviously isn't working correctly when it doesn't come out the right at the bottom. Yeah, essentially, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. That's essentially what it is. But certainly with children, what I do tend to see a lot is a lot of mums contact me and they say, you know, my child's poo is clay-like. It looks like clay. It's really a very, very pale beige colour. And then, you know, I just know we need to do some work around around gut health for that child. But that's really, really common. And actually, you know, my son, you know, we do have a good diet, but, you know, he's 7.5. Occasionally he likes to go to McDonald's with his friends, but I can always guarantee that after he's had some fast food, it completely changes the colour of his poo. Interesting. I know. Well, I mean, your guts can be changed from different things. Again, my sister, whenever our kids are competing in a competition, she'd ring me and she says, I'm having a nervous poo. I'd be the same. So that's kind of like the
the flight and fight system kicking in, eradicating what you don't need in your system. So you can have one of those poos, or sometimes, you know, if you've drunk too much the night before, you can often be saying alcoholic poo. There's different ones, isn't there, that you can do. Yeah. So obviously passing a poo is important for getting rid of estrogen from your system. And then as a woman, if you're not going regularly, it's going to have a huge effect on every aspect, whether it's trying for a baby or, you know, heading perimenopausal or menopause. So yeah, it's very interesting, actually, that whole thing about it. So you were also saying that there's 3 pathways for estrogen in the body. So obviously one of them is being eradicated by your poo. What are the other 2 pathways?
So what it is that when all that used up estrogen is ready to be eliminated from the body, a vast majority goes into the liver. Mm-hmm. And the liver can then choose 3 pathways to detox it.
Okay.
And we could call them, just to make it simple, green, red, and blue. And science has shown us that for optimal health, you know, for a woman, that those pathways should be in a certain proportion. So what we want to see is that the liver is shunting this estrogen, detoxing it more via the green pathway. So at least 60 to 70%. And then what happens, it's like when it's detoxed that estrogen down those pathways, there's a process called methylation to break it down even more, and then it's shunted to the large intestine, you know, and this is where we need the good bacteria to then shunt it out of the body. But just going back to those pathways, so what I am finding is that in a lot of women that come to me for advice and for testing, is we need to do some work around the liver, because their liver is actually choosing more emphasis on breaking the estrogen down the red pathway or the blue pathway. I mean, there are chemical names for this, but I'm just trying to make it.
No, that's okay.
And this is where symptoms occur and issues can occur. So then we use things like usually food or supplements to try and help the liver to shunt the majority of that estrogen down the green pathway, down what we call the healthy pathway. Because the thing is, what the liver is really doing, it takes that estrogen, and in phase 1 detox, it's almost like it makes that estrogen even more potent. So this is why we need the liver to be doing the whole process efficiently. So it's almost like an estrogen bomb. And then the second phase of detoxification, this is the work, and you need a lot of cofactors here. Like we need the cruciferous veg, we need B vitamins, as well as a whole load of other nutrients. That the liver then parcels this estrogen up very nicely. It's like putting it in a box with a bow on it. And then phase 3 of detoxification is where that estrogen parcel is sent into the large intestine. And if you've got good gut bacteria, good balance, they will then just shunt that
little parcel
through the poo. If the gut bacteria are not balanced, then what they do is they happily open up this box, take out all this estrogen, and it just gets reabsorbed back into the body. Which was happening to me 10 years ago.
Which we don't want.
No wonder I was suffering so much.
So eventually it's probably like an estrogen overload essentially in your system, isn't it? Too many of those boxes are not delivered out.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what about through, does the kidney help with excretion of estrogen out of your body?
To a very, very small extent. But the kidneys, as you know, Lucy, you know that they are vital, especially the adrenal glands that sit on top of the kidneys, you know, and I think for a lot of women, supporting good adrenal health is key to, you know, getting everything balanced in the body. Absolutely. And I know, you know, with your program, Lucy, you know, you do talk about stress and sleep, and these are fundamental key things to really help to support the body so a woman can thrive. You know, and it can, you know, in the younger years, balance the hormones. Those two key pillars can balance the hormones because you're really supporting the adrenal glands. But like I said, as a woman then goes through menopause and she's not making much estrogen or progesterone, you know, really nourishing and nurturing the adrenals is super, super important.
It is actually. And going back to the sleep, so again, from a, you know, my background is Chinese medicine, and they have a clock. So your timing, so the liver and gallbladder work together really well, but their time is from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. So it's a very important time to sleep at that point.
Yes.
And again, not too much food in your system, because you want it to work and get that parcel together and be ready to excrete. Whereas if you're putting more on top of it, it's, you know, it's like an overloaded desk, you know, it's like this high instead of being cleared, you know, your inbox is too full and then it's not able to do its job properly. So sleeping at that time, and that's the time when you're estrogen dominant, that you wake up, it wakes up, you're not settled. They call it the Hoto soul isn't settled in the system, and then it roams around the system, disrupts the heart, so and the head, the heart and head work together, so it disrupts that, so you wake up and you be wide awake at 3 a.m, or you could be really hot, sweating and stuff, and again that comes down to liver not regulating the body temperature. So there's a whole, you know, there's that element that comes into it as well. It's really interesting. The times of sleeping are massive, actually, how you know, that's a time that you should be sleeping.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, it is. And again, like I'm not sure how you work with this, but you know, the times of eating, I always try not to eat after 7 in the evening, so you have that time for your body to process the food that you've eaten during the day and, you know, do the job. Ideally, the ideal time when your digestive system, again from Chinese medicine, is working at its ultimate peak is 12 o'clock in midday, and that's the best time to eat your food, because it's absolutely, you couldn't get it working any better at that point.
Yeah, and you know, when my son isn't at school, then we always have our main meal at lunchtime between 12 and 1. Yeah, because I feel that is you know, for optimal digestion of that.
No, it's not always possible with work, and
you
know, a lot of mums work and things, so it's difficult, but it is, if you can keep that timing. It's not always easy, and you know, Amber is in school as well, so doesn't leave school till 2:30, so it's very hard to give her a lunch. You can't give them lunch at lunchtime, and they don't have enough time to eat in school. Actually, she often comes back with her lunchbox full still, and I'm like, how come you didn't eat today? Oh, I didn't have time. So, you know, too much
I get
talking.
it as well. Yeah,
whatever she's doing, too much talking and stuff like that. It's tricky. So it is. So the testing, the diagnostic testing is, you think, it's a key factor. It's good.
Definitely, because the thing is, otherwise a person can be going round and round in circles, trying one thing after another. And you know, another thing I'll just mention, just going back to the adrenal glands, you know, when women come to me and they are absolutely exhausted and they say they just feel overwhelmed with stress, you know, we don't know whether their adrenals are producing too much stress hormones or actually flatlining, and there's hardly any stress hormones. And it can be very difficult to say, well, this is happening or this is happening. And again, without testing, you don't know, because usually there are different ways to try to normalize the stress hormones. So yeah.
So that's why I really love the Western medicine approach and the, say, Eastern medicine approach, that you can really utilize the two. So with Chinese medicine, you can't, you know, you can only go on what the person's telling you, and you know their kidney energy and adrenal energy is low, so it's about building it back up again and getting the system working. But you know, you can work even better if you know the testing, that this is a problem, that they're not producing cortisol or they're producing too much of it. Yeah, this is kind of like fight and freeze mode, isn't it, those that go on?
Yes. And when I was just going back to what I said about me, when I thought I was, you know, my resilience to stress was awful, you know, and all this fear that I had, again, that showed my adrenals had pretty much flatlined. It was almost like I was having, you know, I know some people use the term adrenal fatigue or adrenal insufficiency. And, you know, I needed a lot of rest and, you know, to really nurture my adrenals. And now it's, you know, I have the, you know, because the cortisol is produced, you know, as circadian rhythm, it's absolutely fine. But you know, I was taking some herbs that would have actually lowered my cortisol even more back then. You know, I thought I knew what I was doing. You know, maybe, you know, I thought I was a little bit arrogant, thinking, yes, I've been a pharmacist for 20 years. I know my supplements. But it wasn't, you see, you know, and I think this is it. The way universities, colleges, polytechnics teach, you know, healthcare practitioners, whether it be a pharmacist or a GP, there's not enough emphasis put on all these different pathways and, you know, exactly how supplements work and, you know, the magic of food used as a medicine.
I love that, the magic of food. It's so important, and it is magic. There's a very old Chinese doctor, like centuries and centuries ago, called Sun Tzu Miao, and his theory was, what you can't fix with food, then you turn to medicine. So you can do a lot with food. Now sometimes you do need to supplement, but I just love that, the fact that he used food to fix you. Now these would be like, you know, proper food, like, you know, like a chicken bone broth or something that's really hitting, say like chicken bone broth for adrenals, and the colors and the flavors, bringing all of those elements onto your plate. So yeah, it is, and food is a medicine in itself. Yeah. So it is. Yeah, it really is. It is a medicine in itself.
I mean, I was working last summer, sorry to interrupt, I was working with a lady last summer, and she said to me, you know, I think I'm going through the menopause, my periods have all stopped, I'm suffering with long COVID. She was in bad shape, and literally within 10 days, and the only change I made is I gave her a specific recipe for a smoothie to just bring in a load of nutrients into her body, no supplements. And within 10 days, she says, I've had a bleed. I feel like a veil has lifted from me. And
that's amazing. That's amazing. It's really, yeah. So food healed. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's very true. Wow, you've given us so much to think about, Jolanta, really heaps and heaps. And I love that saying, the magic of food, and it is that. And I think that, we're bombarded from the HSC here in Ireland, so it's the National Health in the UK, but of, your 5 a day and not eating too much meat, eating more meat, eating more, there's so much information about food. And I think for when, it's about keeping it simple and not making it too complicated, and then you're able to do it. Because I think if you overcomplicate things, you just don't do them.
No, exactly. And I think, I'm a real believer in personalized diet, because what will suit me may not necessarily suit you, Lucy.
Yeah.
And if there was a perfect diet out there, wouldn't we all be well? And and so I think this also points to the value of having a nutrition consultation with somebody, to sort of see, well, maybe this isn't suiting you, maybe we could replace this with this to just help. And food intolerance testing, I think is marvelous, because I see a lot of people that have a really healthy diet, really healthy, and yet they're struggling with symptoms or issues. And when we do a food intolerance test, sometimes the healthiest of foods can come up, something like chia seeds or avocado. And it might be, do you know what, you're overloading your gut with these foods, and then it's struggling to digest them, which then has a knock-on effect on absorption. And sometimes just by removing that food or lessening it, and this isn't forever, this is just like
almost like a detox for a few weeks from it. Yeah,
exactly. And that can all of a sudden, they say, oh my goodness, I'm feeling so much better. And it's like everything in moderation.
It is, isn't it? Well, I know I love salads, but I can't eat them, because I feel bloated and full. They just sit in my stomach. Yeah. So but I can eat salad sometimes, but I can eat it, funny enough, at around lunchtime. There's no way I could eat it in the nighttime. Just no way. It'd be lying in bed, bloated, feeling a bit nausea, so feeling really uncomfortable. So I just don't eat them, because they just, whatever it is about a lettuce, it just doesn't agree with me. And tomatoes, cold tomatoes, I can eat them cooked. If they're cooked, I can eat them. Cold, forget it. Yeah, it's the same. It's just, so yeah, it's about listening to your body. And I used to eat salads a lot, and I'd feel so rotten after them, and really tired and a bit nausea and a bit bloated. And once I stopped eating them, and they're a healthy food, like lettuce is good, it's a herb, and it's very good for you, but just for some reason didn't suit me now. And the same like onions, but if I cook onions, cook tomatoes, cook what you can cook from a salad, no problem. But just whatever the quality of the food, I couldn't eat it at all. Now sometimes I can eat rocket, but rocket is more of a hot type food. Yeah, so that's one of the ones that I can eat. So it's interesting.
And I for example can't eat a lot of fermented foods, because that triggers my migraines. And again, this could be a whole other conversation about histamine intolerance, oh my goodness. And it's like knowing your limits, okay, I can eat this, but I can't eat that. Or like with the egg whites, I can maybe have 2 eggs a week, but if I go out somewhere and someone has made a beautiful meringue, I just know that if I have a slice of that, that's a super whammy egg white bomb for me. And I just know that the next day, or sometimes the day after, I will have a migraine.
Interesting. There is certain foods that do trigger you. Yeah, I agree. I do agree. And also I think as well, it depends how tired you are and how you digest your food. I think that comes in a lot of it. You know, that if you're certain foods that you could be slightly intolerant, if your energy is good, you can digest them well. But if your energy is low, you just, it doesn't do you good. So yeah, probably everyone should probably have a food test. It gives them an idea of what foods suit and don't suit them. And is it an easy test to do, the food intolerance?
Oh, it's super, super simple. So I work with a very reputable lab, and I also consult for them as well. And basically you get like, you get a lancet. So you just need literally a drop of blood, and you get like this straw or wand, and you just pop this straw next to your finger, and the blood is just drawn up. And then you just, fill in your details, post it off. And then 7 days later, I get the results, and we go for a consultation. So, to talk through the results, give them some guidance and what to do, and then how to, because obviously dairy comes up a lot for people. And again, this may not be forever, it might just be, we need to do an elimination diet. But of course, then we need to ensure that that person does still need all the nutrients that they would have had from the dairy, like the calcium, iodine. So we always have a thorough consultation to go through the test, so I can advise them on alternative substitutes and do some meal planning.
Yeah, because I think that's a fear as well. So, I mean, I love chocolate and cheese, they're my two things. And I think I'd be like, oh, but it's about finding different ways, isn't it? It's about resetting your mind to think that by not eating chocolate, but maybe eating this instead, you're going to feel the benefits of it. Yeah. So we must cut. I have to get you back on again and talking about that, the food testing and the reaction from different foods, and like egg whites. So it'd be really good. You've been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucy.
You've been brilliant. Thank you. And if anyone wants to get hold of Jolanta, I'm going to put all her details up and all the links that you can contact her with. And also, if you would like to join me on my menopause course, I will add that link in too, and that will be there for you. And don't forget to like or subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.